Democrat of Connecticut. Senator, thanks for being with us. You warned on the Senate floor today that in your view, American democracy itself is at stake. True or not, wasn't that the losing argument in the last election?
Well, I mean, we really don't have the ability to think about the electoral consequences of what's happening to the country right now. The fact of the matter is Donald Trump is trying to destroy our democracy so that he can turn the entire government over to his billionaire friends. He's trying to create a kind of kleptocratic oligarchy where he and his Mar-a-Lago buddies steal from the rest of us. We have to tell that story. I mean, I understand that it's kind of a popular theme that Kamala Harris shouldn't have run on protecting democracy. But, you know, if you run on telling the American public that this guy, Donald Trump, is going to destroy the rule of law if he wins, and then you don't act like it, you don't tell the truth when he actually tries to convert American democracy to American autocracy, then you lose all of your credibility. So I don't sit here every day thinking about the political or electoral ramifications of telling the truth. We should just tell the truth. And the truth is the president is trying to destroy our country, the most massive transfer of wealth from the middle class to the rich in the history of the country, and destruction of the rule of law. That's why his approval ratings are plummeting by the day right now.
If the president wants to continue to gut cabinet departments, deport people without due process, I mean, you know, what can Democrats really do other than hope his actions get blocked in courts? Because, I mean, that seems obviously the most likely scenario on some of these things. Without majorities in Congress, your options are very limited, no?
Yeah, when the president violates the law, there is not a natural remedy for Congress. Congress could pass a second law saying the same thing, but this president has made it clear he doesn't give a damn about what the Constitution says or what the law says. In that case, there's really two primary remedies. One is through the court system, and obviously you're seeing the president every single day have his illegal actions reversed by the courts. But the second is mobilization, is the American public rising up, as it is all over the country, in protest. You know, once a president's approval ratings get down to where they are today, high 30s, mid 30s, 40%, well, then his enablers, the people around him who, you know, make his agenda work, they start to get second thoughts because they realize that tying themselves to Donald Trump is a prescription for them to lose their elections in the next midterms. So if the president's approval ratings stay where they are or get lower because of mass public mobilization, he'll have a hard time, you know, finding the support he needs to continue to enact this agenda.
Why do you think Democrats are not doing better in that same kind of polling? A new CNN poll showed the approval rating for Democratic leaders in Congress at 27%. How do you, I mean, do you think that perception will just change? How does it change?
Yeah, listen, I think that, you know, people have been shocked at how quickly Donald Trump has laid an assault on the Constitution and the rule of law. And I think a lot of people are taking out their anxiety and their anger at Donald Trump on the Democratic Party. Some of that is legitimate. I mean, I would say there have been moments where we have not stepped up and fought as hard as we should. I don't think this is politics as normal, so I think Democrats should be, you know, willing to take day-to-day risks. And you started to see that from Cory Booker, from my colleague Chris Van Hollen. That's the kind of leadership people are looking for. And I think as Democrats start to step up to this moment, to be more risk tolerant in the tactics they take, I think you'll see the American public, you know, start to lighten a little bit in their opinion of Democrats. Right now, I think that they're deeply worried about the direction of the country, and they're taking out some of that frustration, sometimes with merit, on the opposition party.
Senator Chris Murphy, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yep.
Joining me now is New York Times White House correspondent, CNN political analyst Maggie Haberman. 100 days, we see how the president is selling it. What is